So can you just start by sharing your story a bit? Like how did that book come about? Where did you I don't know where you came from before that. Like
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was a endurance athlete in my teens and 20s, and then into my 30s a little bit. Had gravitated toward distance running because I wasn't good at anything else. I was typically too skinny for football, basketball, baseball, or hockey. I grew up in Maine. I grew up in a fishing village in Maine. So started running, became pretty good at it, pretty proficient. Would win the mile and 2 mile at high school track meets. And then in college, I got even better. And so even though I was pre-med in college, I decided to allocate 3 years after I graduated to training for the Olympic trials and the marathon rather than going off to med school. I never wound up going to med school, and it's probably, for my case, the best decision I ever made. And spent years as competing and then coaching other athletes, and along the way, gathering information on how to improve performance, right? I was really interested in how I could run faster, how I could be stronger, how I wouldn't get sick or injured, what I needed to eat to fuel the miles that I was putting in. And over the years, started to really compile a lot of information that I didn't think everybody had access to. So starting in the late 80s, I was writing books on fitness, on training for triathlon and training for duathlon and general fitness. My fourth book by already 1989 was The Ultimate Lean Routine, which is one of my favorite books I ever wrote, and no one's ever read it. So now at that time I was so into performance, I started a supplement company, and I was looking at making the sorts of performance supplements, recovery supplements that athletes could take without danger of getting nailed for using illegal substances. So my supplement company was really my main business for a number of years. And I started growing the business on the strength of my appearances on television shows, where I would go to these health talk shows, these cobbled together cable networks of health shows, and I'd appear and talk about the ways to eat and lose weight, or how to be healthy and how to work out the right way. And oh, by the way, over here I have these supplements. You should try them. And I was very successful doing that for a long time. And I built a nice supplement business doing that. We used to call it direct response on TV. Now it's D2C. But when the model that I was using, that business model fell apart in the early 2000s because of the internet, because of now there were 300 cable channels and lots of opportunities for people to watch things other than infomercials. I pivoted to do a blog, which I called Mark's Daily Apple. And I was going to use that as a platform to sell my supplements. But over the years, I started writing more and more about diet and exercise and all of the things that I knew a lot about and had been researching for decades. But I was selling fewer and fewer of the supplements. And that was largely in part due to the fact that what I was writing about was it was becoming coalesced in my mind, this ancestral template that started out as Paleo. I branded it Primal in my own business model and wrote every day about ancestral living and sun exposure and play and diet and exercise and sleep and all the things that everybody talks about today. But I put these into a template that I called the Primal Blueprint. And so that was the book that you read in probably 2010. From there, I started writing a little bit more specifically about, because for me, Primal was the lens through which I looked at everything. How did we evolve as humans here on this planet with these genetic recipes that want us to be strong and lean and fit and happy and healthy and productive? And yet look at all the ways in which our society has thwarted these expectations that our genes have. So my mission became how to uncover these hidden genetic switches that we all have. How can we build muscle and burn fat? How can we improve our immune system? How can we beat depression, overcome depression? All these little things that people on a daily basis talk about and argue about and fight about it. And for me, it was all based in epigenetics, which was at the time, by the way, just coming on the
Yep.
scene. I mean, it was a sort of a new concept that it's not your genes that are determining who you become, but more how those genes turn on or off based on lifestyle behaviors, what you eat, again, how you sleep, types of exercise you choose to do. So, over the years, that became my main focus was how can I educate the public on ways in which we can turn on these genes that do all the things we want them to do and turn off these genes that we're not really happy with the outcome. And I guess ultimately what happened was my interest in food became so overpowering that I kind of went on to create a line of food products called Primal Kitchen, based largely on the idea that I had been writing about all these wonderful foods that you could consume to achieve excellent health: meat, fish, fowl, eggs, nuts, seeds, vegetables, a little bit of fruit, by giving up a lot of the things that people are used to: bread, pasta, cereal, industrial seed oils, sugar, sugary drinks, pies, cakes, candies. I could go on, but you know that list. And ultimately, when you come down to this short list of the foods you can eat, what makes it sustainable and pleasurable are the ways you cook them, the methods of preparation, the sauces, the dressings, the toppings, the herbs, the spices, and all of that stuff. So to me, it was like an aha moment. A light bulb went on and said, well, if I'm going to make all of these admonitions about how to eat properly, I better give people the tools with which they can make these foods taste better and use these sauces and dressings with reckless abandon. And so that's what became Primal Kitchen. And that's what I did for the last, I started that in 2014. I'm still involved. I sold it to Kraft Heinz about 5 years ago, but then I turned my attention to foot health, and that's where I am today.
Yes, yes. So I got to just plug the Primal Kitchens. I remember when that came on the scene and I was like, this is brilliant. You've been talking about this stuff for so long. And it's so funny to see. My mentor also, he was a naturopathic physician and he was so knowledgeable about these things. And to see these biohackers nowadays, some of them don't even lift.
Yeah. Do
And
you
they
even
go,
lift, bro?
no, they go on, and I'm like, it's just a lot of regurgitation of the same old things. And unfortunately, we got to play the game, right? Because
Yeah.
I'm on Instagram, you're on Instagram. We're saying a lot of the same old stuff. And I'm not your age, but I am 50. I've been around a while, and I've known of these things for decades. And so it's when people are like, "What do you think about this?" And I'm like, I don't even think about it anymore. That was like 20, 30 years ago,